I'm going to get into some very specific questions, but generally speaking, what did you find were the major takeaways?
Major takeaways are that this is a very different generation from those who have come before, and they're our first window into the generations that are coming in the future. Most researchers, marketers tend to look at millennials as a single cohort by being born 1982 to 2002. The internet came right in the middle in 1993, and you really can't compare pre to post-internet. So the major takeaways are that this first generation of internet pioneers, who are a window to the internet natives, have completely different attitudes in the way they approach life. They are first of all focused on creating stability. They've had such incredible chaos in their lives across all aspects of their lives that they're really focused on going to the internet for stability, and are very skilled at finding ways to create stability in their lives through the internet and through relationships they develop on the internet. Their belief in diversity and human equality is part of their DNA. They really don't understand the concepts of lack of equality. They're very focused on knowledge. Information just flows at them from all ways, and they're very good at sorting through the information to find those nuggets of knowledge that are really relevant to them, that respond to their needs and interests on an individual as well as a group basis. So they're very good at sorting through the reams of information to find those nuggets of knowledge. They're very focused on doing good. They're the first generation since the Great Depression to grow up without an inherent belief that they're going to do better and have a right to do better financially than their parents economically. So they are less focused on making money and being financially successful, and more focused on finding success in other ways, through doing good, through making a contribution. They're very collaborative. Because again, they grew up on the internet. They understand the concept of integration and collaboration. It's part of their DNA. So these are really the major overall findings. There are a lot of detailed findings in individual categories.
So would you say that there's a generation gap between the pioneers and other generations? Or are there similarities between the pioneers and certain generations? What is the generational comparison?
Generation gap is, in its fundamental concept, is an outdated term, because the reality of the internet is that it's a connecting tissue among all generations. So there are links and combinations. The difference in this generation is an inherent understanding of how to use the internet to create those connections and to build those relationships, where others may need to learn the internet or how to use it, may find it somewhat chaotic, may find it somewhat difficult, may find technology advancing at too fast a pace to keep up with. This generation, it's inherently part of their nature to be able to use the internet to create connections and relationships for their needs and interests, and to keep pace with the rate of advancement and acceleration in technology, because they're accustomed to it. They've been doing it their whole lives, so they expect it. It's part of their norm. In terms of future generations, they're our first window into them, and I believe we're going to see in internet natives a lot of the qualities that I found in these internet pioneers almost on steroids. They're going to accelerate these qualities and that's what will differentiate them. But this generation is unique because it is the connective link between the pre and the post-internet generations. I also believe this is a generation of these kids born 91 to 95 in college today are going to be a generation of leaders, because they are the first to break ground in terms of how they look at and approach the world through the internet. Others who come after them will be following their lead. So I believe they're going to, by the nature of who they are and when they were born, be a generation of leaders. And my belief, having studied them, is that they're the next great generation.
From what I got from the book, it seemed like there were certain values that this generation finds very important, and it's based partly on their accessibility through the internet, but also by events during their lifetime. How do you think their values might be different or the same to previous generations?
Well, first of all, you think about the more recent generations, starting with the boomers and through the millennials. They're generations of being me generations. They're generations of my interests come first, my financial success comes first, my needs come first. This is a generation that really does not share that me attitude. It's an us attitude. They've again grown up on the internet, where where you're valued for your ideas, your creativity, and your contribution to the whole more than you are for your wealth, and you're not judged based on your gender or your ethnicity. You're valued for what you can contribute. As you mentioned, they're a generation that is not only grown up with the internet, they've grown up with 2 decades of economic collapse, of political polarization, of social upheaval, of 9/11, a war on terror. This has all informed them. They've grown up in an extremely chaotic time, and that's very challenging for most generations that have been dealing with this after, decades of different levels of disruption intermixed with periods of stability. This has been one solid period of 2 decades of instability, polarization, and chaos and disruption, plus technological acceleration and disruption. So this is a generation that comes to this as the norm, and they are a generation that's really looking to create stability in their lives, and they use the internet as a place almost like a community center or a social center, a place where they go for peace and tranquility, and to have their needs met for peaceful socialization and coexistence. In that context, whereas the past 2 decades change agents have been both revered and challenged, but welcomed into organizations. They may not last long, but they're welcomed, and their job is to create disruption. I think we're moving into 2 decades where stability agents will be welcomed into companies. How do we create stability out of the disruption that's created the turmoil and will continue to? And this particular generation is going to be very skilled at finding ways to create stability.